All right. He's basically going to go over what he's implementing in the award. And so the first bullet point is the wage increases. 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. That's with me on page 12. Okay. 1.3 is November of 23. 1.4 is November of 24. And 1.5 will be November of this year. Right. Next bullet point is a continuation of the COLA formula. The COLA formula represents about half of the rate of inflation. It's anyway, they do a mathematical formulation, which ends up being, like I said, about half of the rate of inflation. And if you apply the cost of living allowance as a percent of your salary, the percent is the same for everybody. Once we get into this thing right here, like a breakdown of all of the raises and everything in there, you'll see that everyone actually gets the same percent pay raise. But before, we had the proportional COLA before 2013. So here's why I give my little spiel about pre-2013 and after 2013. Who started after 2013? Okay. There's about what, 4 of us. When you start, Lawrence?
After. Well, actually, right at the end.
FTE. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, I should have said who started as a career employee.
Yeah, mine was January of 2013. It should have been December of 2012, but
Either way, it's right there. Then you had to become a CCA by April, and at some point you became a full-time regular. But I started in 1984. It was we'll go over this. The table 1 pay chart was significantly better, including cost of living allowances used to be a dollar amount. So when they calculated that formula, which I said is about half of the rate of inflation, when they applied that number, they would apply the same number to every step. And so your percent increase at the lower steps was actually higher than your percent increase at the highest step, because the dollar amount is the same. Now that it's proportional, the dollar amount is different, but the percent is the same. Additionally, everyone that started after 2013 as a employee paid 4.4% of their pay into the first that we were paying for. Additionally, you look at the cost of health insurance, you look at the job itself, you look at just any number of factors, and the job prior to 2013 and after 2013 it's just a big difference in money and experience and just viewpoint on what the job is. So, but anyway, so the arbitrator said cost of living allowance in the same way that they're doing it, which is a proportional COLA based on that formula. And then you have the 3 things that come within 180 days. So within 180 days, there's 3 raises built into the contract. One of them is if you're at the top step, or I guess if you're at the top step within 180 days, your pay goes up by $1,000 per year. Second thing, they're going to eliminate the lowest 2 steps on pay scale, AA and A, and starting pay will be step B. So if you're at one of those lower steps, you automatically go up to step B. If you're a new hire, you come in at step B. If you're in if you're in the all-career model, like the offices in Illinois, the all-career model now, you'll come to PTF started at step B. And I'll go into the whole PTF thing because there's actually an improvement in the contract. And the third thing is CCAs will get a 50 cents raise within 180 days. So that's the 3 things that happen within 180 days. And I think that's all they cover there. Yeah, that's the essence of the wage increases. And so going through the award, it breaks down the salary and wages, which we'll go into, right now. But I just want to point out one more thing in the award that is relevant. And that is right at the end. Sandy's going to read that for us. Under number 3, other provisions. Other provisions where the action starts here.
Right, except as otherwise indicated herein, all contractual modifications in the TA shall be included in the new contract. The terms take effect on the date of the issuance of this award, unless otherwise indicated. Pay adjustments that take effect prior to this date of this award shall be paid retroactively, consistent with the parties' established practice. The parties will separately determine the implementation plan for the changes in Article 8.
All right, so look at like 4 sentences. The first one is that, except as indicated, everything that was in the tentative agreement is included in the new contract, except as indicated. And really what's indicated is, the things that I just read, the salary stuff. Basically, the tentative agreement and the salary stuff was real similar to the tentative agreement as well. Basically, the tentative agreement is incorporated into the new contract. Even though we voted the thing down, 2-1, yeah, they just figured out a way just to put it right in the contract anyway. That's the first sentence. The second sentence is that the date of the award, March 21st of this year, all of the terms take effect immediately, March 21st, when the arbitrator signed this award, except as indicated. So when I say the pay raises will be within 180 days, those 3 things, that's the exception. Those will be within 180 days. The new employee retention program, mentoring program, it has a line in there that says the parties will work on implementation and they'll kind of let us know when it's going to start, kind of thing. So that is not in effect yet. It'll start later. And then it says here that the parties will separately determine the implementation plan for the changes in Article 8. So all of the changes in Article 8 are not in Article 8 is like hours of work, overtime rules. All of the changes in Article 8 have not yet been implemented, will not be implemented until at least July the 1st, because you have equitability rules that cannot be implemented in the middle of the quarter. So at some point between now and July 1st, they'll put together, everything, and they'll send it out and they'll say, here's what the new rules are, here's how it's going to apply, etc. We are going to training like we're doing here in the various spots throughout the state, plus at the state convention in Springfield, if you guys are going, only on the Article 8 changes, what it means, how it's going to be, how the different lists are going to work, how you're going to determine, how you're going to interpret the different provisions, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that will be in the June class and or at the state convention if you guys go to the state convention. So I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it. You guys have questions, after we're done, we can get into some of those things. But really, we don't know some of the applicability of the Article 8 changes because we haven't seen the exact contract language and we haven't seen the exact JCAM language, the Joint Contract Administration Manual, to really see how, when they negotiated these things, how they wanted them to be implemented and interpreted. So we'll leave that alone. The other sentence is that pay adjustments that take place. It's you got one of these. He's a carrier that. Gotcha. Here's one. Man, that's beautiful. But if you would like to one of everything, like here, you're gonna need the pay chart. You're gonna need the pay chart in a minute. I'll say that. Pay adjustments take effect prior to the date of this award shall be paid retroactively, consistent with the parties' practice. So when was our pay update? Who knows? Well, this is perfect. current pay period. April 19th was day one of the pay period. April 19th through May 2nd, this Friday. You get your check next week. We got that, what do they call it, time, time? Yeah, Wednesday. Yeah. Whenever you get it next week, you know, it will have a substantial increase because it's been a long time since the old contract expired in May of 2023, and the pay raises that are built in are retroactive and are now going to be in effect. So look at our handy little chart here. It doesn't matter which one you look at, but you can have both of them, but I look at the full-time regular chart just because it's more common. But you do have your honorable carrier technicians in the house, that's fine. But it doesn't matter which one you look at. So what you're looking at is, on the left-hand side, is all of the steps, the rate of pay, the salary, as of May of 2023. You guys see that? Now, it's going to get into the proportional COLA. That's a typo. The UN is a typo. Mr. Jackson, RAA in the office, he printed out some new ones for us, wasted up all our good color ink. And for the only purpose was to get rid of the U and the N. Because these right here say proportional COLA, which is the correct term. I don't think it matters. I just gave you guys the other ones that we got printed out already. So make no difference. But you can see the COLA, if you go to the bottom at step P, that's 100% of the dollar amount. You guys see that? 1.000. And then every step is a proportion of that dollar amount. So 61% through 100%, depending on what step you're at in the process. You want to get together two of those packets for me? Yeah. And give them out. What's that? 18 push-ups? Okay, so the first raise was August 26th of 2023, and it was a $978 cost of living allowance. $978 for the top step was how much for step A? How much? What's yours say?
Pennies on the dollar.
It's not pennies. 590, well, this one is 598. I don't know what the care technician for.
598.
598, same thing? Oh, because it's the same percent, right? It wouldn't matter, the percent would be the same. So 598, you know, which is not nothing, but anyway, you'll see how it plays out. And then November 2023, there's a 1.3% raise. And then March 29th, there's $353, which is only $216 for the step A. And then you have September 7th, 24, another $978. That's just a coincidence that the number came out the same. That's crazy. You know, the number came out exactly the same. 598 for the lowest step. Then November of last year was 1.4% raise. And then in March of this year, you had $416 raise, or anywhere between $254 and $416. And then you have your new salary, which is in effect March 8th of 2025. That column right here is your salary now. So your salary now, as they updated, we haven't seen it yet, we haven't spent none of the money yet, but you'll get it on your next check. And this will be the amount that your new salary will be based on whatever step you're at. Starting pay is like $49,000 and top pay is like $80,000. So that's our new range of pay between 49 and 80. As of now, yet to come, right, is your cost of living allowance. That'll come later on this year. Yet to come is your 1.5% raise. That will come in November of this year. And is another cost of living allowance in the early part of 2026. And then contract expires May 22nd, I believe, in 2026. This is the only contract for these things. We're really not gonna have that opportunity because bargaining will begin next February. Bargaining begins with the law 90 days prior to the present contract. So it'll begin February 23rd or whatever in 2026. The convention won't be until August 5th of next year. So that's a little bit of a weird situation, but it's a 3-year contract, May 20th of 2023 up till May 21st or something, 2026. All right, so if you look at the next column there, after the current pay, what color is that? That like peach? What do y'all call it that? Peach? Okay. After the peach into the green, after the solid black column there, you got your total COLA increases and your total contract increases. And of course, your total contract increases is a percent of your salary at that step. And your total and your COLA increases is really the same, it's a percent as well. They just don't call it a percent. They say it's a proportional COLA. The top one is a certain amount and the lower one is a proportion of the top amount. But what you'll see is you have your total increases. So if you add up the green and the blue, you add up your total COLA increases and your total contract increases, which really is your general wage increases. You add up your COLAs and your general wage increases, you get your total increases. And your total increase is a different number for every step of the pay scale, except then if you get a total percent raise, what's that number? And it doesn't matter what step you're at. Everybody is getting a 6.32% raise in this paycheck, except for the CCAs. CCAs are on a different pay scale. Everybody on the career pay scale is getting a 6.32% raise. The per hour that it breaks down to is like $1.40 up until $2.30 per hour raise. So it's not nothing. It's a significant pay raise. It's been a long time coming. The back pay, we think, will come in August of this year. That is only based on, words that the Postal Service have uttered to us. And they lie. They lie, and they're, they don't meet their estimates all the time, right? So we'll see how that plays out. We did not negotiate any language that requires them to give us our back pay money by a certain time frame. We did not negotiate any interest on our back pay that they've been holding, since 2023. But yet and still, the back pay will be a significant amount of money as well, just because of the length of time and the amount of raises and, the rate of inflation has gone up a lot. And this contract, when you compare this contract with other contracts, you have to keep in mind that there have been, so the COLA is basically about half the rate of inflation, if you keep that in your head. And so historically, the rate of inflation in a lot of years has been hovered around 2%. 2% rate of inflation was a normal rate of inflation for a lot of years. And so half of that is 1%. So if you get a cost of living allowance and you get a 1.3% raise, you're actually in a lot of years beating the rate of inflation. But during the terms of this contract, which began in 2019 up until 2023, and then going forward, the rate of inflation was up to 9% in some years. 4, 5, 6% was a normal rate of inflation during that time. And so if you're getting half of that in your cost of living, and then you're getting an additional 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, you're actually losing money versus the rate of inflation. And if you'd have told us that we were gonna work through the pandemic and then our labor was gonna be less valuable, not more valuable afterwards, you would have said, how is that possible? But yet, that's what happened. The pay raises are not nothing, but they don't even keep up with the rate of inflation during the term of this contract. So there's that. All right, any questions on any of this? No. What is the CCA? What is the CCA rate of pay now? So let's go to the pay chart. Let's go to the pay chart. Then we have one. We have a million in the pay chart. This is your current pay. Current pay. So where it says there that the lowest step went up by $1.40, CCAs were at 1933. They're now at 2023, which by my math is 90 cents an hour. So CCAs only went up by 90 cents versus the step A went up by $1 between $1.40 and $2.30 on the career pay scale. The CCAs get, so if you guys see right here, you see this part of the pay chart, top right-hand corner. The CCAs are getting, they do not get cost of living. They get 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, plus 1%, right? And go back to 2013, that was the same formula that arbitrator Das used. Same pay increase as career and carriers, plus 1%, but no cost of living allowance. And the pay rates for CCAs was actually better during some times, because if the rate of inflation is less than 2%, then if you're getting an additional 1%, that's not bad. But like I said, when the rate of inflation is what it is today, the extra 1% is really shitty. And so the CCA pay, which was already lousy, it got even worse because the pay rate, when you're talking about a 2.3% raise and a 2.4% raise and a 2.5% raise, you're not even keeping up with the rate of inflation there. When you add in, because it's plus 1%, when you add those together, it's not even as high as the rate of inflation. Anyway, it's not a good deal for the CCAs. So the CCA pay will be 2023. Of course, CCAs will get in 180 days, they will get a 50 cents raise. So they'll be up to 2073. And then they'll get a 1.5% raise in November, which we would know what the amount is. So by the way, when they say a 1.5% raise in November, you're not actually getting 1.5% of your salary in November. You're getting 1.5% of your starting pay going back to the beginning of the contract. So you're going to get, if you take this number right here, the first peach column, your starting pay, you're going to get 1.3% of this, and then 1.4% of this, and then 1.5% of this. So CCAs will get 2.5% of $19.33, which I think I can figure that out. Yeah. Times point, what do we say, 2.5%? Yeah, it's 48 cents. So they get a 48 cents raise. So they're going to get 50 cents within 180 days. And that 180 days is a maximum. So those three things that are going to take place within 180 days, that is by September 21st, because you have March 21st as the date of the contract, right? The Postal Service is giving us raises. I don't think they're going to give us those raises ahead of time. So they're going to wait until that final pay period right before September 21st. That's when you're going to get those raises. So CCAs will get about $1 raise. So they're sitting at, what do we say they're sitting at now? 2023. So they'll get about $1 because they'll get the 48 cents and they'll get the 50 cents. And so they'll be right at about 21, 23, which is crazy. And that's in, that's it. So when the contract expires in May of next year, that will still be the CCA pay, 21, was it 21, right? Something like that. The pay for a non-career transitional employee, when Lawrence started or whatever, back in like 2011, was $22.15, which in today's dollars is really like $30 an hour. And we haven't even made it up to the dollar amount of $22.15 by the end of this contract. So the starting pay and the whole CCA thing is a complete disaster in this contract. And if you guys go back and listen to when we first, so contract negotiations opened up February 22nd of 2023. We went to USPS headquarters, LaFont Plaza, and President Renfro shaking hands with then the Postmaster General Louis DeJoy. They read their opening statements. You can read the opening statement. You can listen to the opening statement. You can see a video of the opening statement. You'll see that President Renfro stressed how important it was for us to get rid of the non-career classification. The Postal Service is not attracting enough applicants. They're not able to get the mail delivered in a lot of post offices around the country. That's why they implemented the off-career model. It wasn't out of benevolence, that they're hiring directly to career. It was because like San Francisco and places like that, it was just simply impossible to staff the letter carrier craft unless they took that step. So what we said was this non-career classification, it doesn't work for the letter carrier craft. It may work for the clerks, it may work for somebody else, but it doesn't work for the letter carrier craft. And we really had a good opportunity to finally win that and win an all-career workforce. And we botched it. We didn't get there. This is now the fourth contract in a row where we have a non-career workforce. And every time, I'm sure one of our bargaining goals in the 2026 contract is going to be, we want to get rid of the non-career workforce. Everyone start off as a career carrier, except it's going to be harder and harder and harder to accomplish that every time you enter into a contract as part of the terms of the contract. And quite frankly, coming out of the pandemic, we had the most leverage that we're probably going to have in a long time because we were deemed essential. And the job was obviously more dangerous than what it had been. And the value of the letter carrier was at its highest point during that time. And it probably won't be at that same high point next time we go into negotiations. So anyway, I can't stress enough what a disaster the CCA thing was for us. So one more thing I want to look at in the pay chart, and that is table 1 versus table 2. So table 1 was a much better pay chart for letter carriers. Oh, you got one too? That was nice of me. I gave you one too.
Yeah.
No problem. Table 1 was much better in a lot of ways. Obviously, you look at starting pay. It was step A starting pay for in table 1. You guys see that number? You want to go to the dollar amount? Yep, $31.96. And what is it in table 2? $23.53. Significant difference in starting pay. Everyone gets to the same point at the end. If you look at the starting pay at step P, what is that? $38.49? $38.49 is on table 1 and table 2. But there's a significantly lower, obviously, starting pay in table 2. All of the pay raises in table 2 are exactly the same pay raises. If you want to do the math, if you look at between step A and step B, is about what? $1.05. And then if you look from B to C, it's $1.06. And then, C to D is $1.05. You guys see that? It's exactly the same difference between the steps. 46-week increments and exactly the same pay raise, about $1 an hour for every step. Now, if you look at, table one, you can look at the difference between A and B. And someone, look at those numbers and tell me what you think the difference is. You can round it. You see it?
You got first place.
Somebody's there, but that's something else. You guys see the difference between A and B there in table one? 223, 224. Yeah, like 220. With your first step increase in table one versus in table two, it starts way lower and there's this slow march, you know, all the way to the top. Each raise is exactly the same going up the pay scale, but that wasn't the case in table one. There's a huge increase between A and B, and then there's another big increase between C and D. And so by the time you got to D at 74,405, you guys see that number? 74,405, you're almost at 80. So step D, which is, you know, the fourth step of the scale, it's really early in your career, and you start as a career, assuming you started as a career carrier, which most people did back then. You started as a career carrier. Once you got to step D, you know, you were very close to the top pay. 74,000, you only had 6,000 left to go. Now, if you look at step D on the table two pay chart, it's 55,510. 55,510 is a lot less than 80. You still got $25,000 to cover there, and it's going to be slow increments to get there. So not only are you paid significantly less to start, but at every step, it is significantly less in the entire pay chart. You get to the top the same, but in your travels to the top, you have lost a ton of money, and the post office has saved a ton of money in that time frame. Now we eliminated the bottom two steps in this new contract. So in this contract, everyone is going to start at step B, which is right now 20, yeah. And they'll start as a part-time flexible at 25.67. So you see the part-time flexible rate under table two. You see step B, 25.67, and the full-time rate is 24.58. You guys see those two numbers? Why is the part-time flexible rate higher?
They don't get holiday pay, whatnot, so they don't get certain incentives that full-time do.
They don't get, I would not say they don't get holiday pay. They don't get paid the holidays. So if you take a full-time regular, we have 11 paid holidays. Now they officially put Juneteenth into this contract. They had 10, now we have 11. 11 paid holidays. If you want to know what you make as an hourly rate of pay, if you're a full-time regular, you take your annual salary and you divide that amount by 2,080 because you're paid 2,080 hours, but you're only working 1,992 hours because 88 of those hours, 11 holidays times 88 of those hours, you don't have to work and you still get paid. So when they take the full-time regular hourly rate, they divide by 2080. But when they take the part-time flexible hourly rate, they just divide it by 1992, which gives them, because they don't get paid the holidays, right, as a PTO, but they raise their hourly rate of pay by like $1 an hour to compensate for the fact that you're not going to get you're not going to get holiday pay on those holidays. So basically, you do get holiday pay. It's just spread out throughout the year. You just don't get paid on the holiday. And so that was something that we gave up in the last contract, and we got back in this contract. In my opinion, that's the best thing we got out of this contract. I think it's the way it should be, and it is good, and it raises the starting pay for PTFs. So if you look at the number there, the number for PTFs is 25.67. Is that right? 25.67 as a starting pay, and still it's going to go up even further if you look at, the pay raises that are yet to be determined. So if you go up to the top here, the top left, you see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pay raises in there. We got 6 of them already. There's 3 left. So PTFs will be getting a COLA, July COLA, September 6th of 2025, 1.5%, November 15th. And then next year, March 7th, another COLA. The amounts are to be determined. It's based on the rate of inflation, but we know the pay is going to go up. And so the starting pay for PTF will be over $26 an hour, which right now is $22.13 is the starting pay without the holidays, because you guys see that AA thing in there? Under table 2, that AA thing it means without the holidays. What we did in the last contract, we traded it away. So in the last contract, which was a long time ago, I don't know if you guys remember, we won something big in the last contract. You guys remember what that was? It had to do with CCAs. Yes. Prior to that, you could be a CCA for eternity. You know, most of our people were getting converted in a, regular time frame, but we have people, especially in the small post offices, it could take forever. You had to wait on a vacancy, whatever. In the last contract, we got it in there that the 2-year limit. You wouldn't be more than 2 years as a CCA, but the trade-off was that when you got converted from CCA to PTF, and they weren't hiring anyone as a PTF, that the PTF would start at the AA rate of pay, which is basically the same as the step A rate of pay without the holidays built in. So this contract, you got the holidays back, because now you're starting at B, not like double B or no bullshit like that. You start right at B, and B has the language built in for PTFs to get the extra holiday. So starting pay would be like $26 an hour, a lot better than $22.13. But for those of you keeping score, career clerks, PTFs, are starting at $27.28, and their contract expired last year, so they're going to get more raises on top of that as well. So it's still not where we need to be. We really need to be really close to that $30 an hour starting pay. But I don't know when and how and if we're gonna get there. So I think that's about what I wanted to cover on the pay chart. Any questions on the pay, on anything about the pay? We went over the back pay, right? Back pay was the back pay. The way they process the back pay is, so what's the back pay period? Who can tell me the back pay period? The date, date was the start date, was the end date of the back pay period?
It starts May 23rd.
It doesn't start May 23rd because when was the first pay increase? So May 23rd, there was no pay increase. What's the date? Correct. August 26th of 2023 is the start date of the back pay period. And when did it end? You know the date? April 18th. April 18th was the last day of the pay period before this one. As of April 19th, we're making the new amount. Even though we haven't got it yet, on the check, it'll show the 6.32% increase. So the back pay period is August 26th of 2023 to April 18th of 2025. And they're going to owe different people different amounts. One, obviously based on how much was your increase, right? At the lower steps, it's a lower increase. At the higher steps, it's a higher increase. So that's going to change the amount, but it's also going to depend on the number of hours that you work during that period. So they'll go to the first pay period. They'll say, during this pay period of August 26, 2023, what was the rate of pay? What did we pay this person at that time versus what should we have paid them if we would have calculated in that pay raise that they ended up getting? And whatever that difference is, let's say it's 5 cents an hour, 10 cents an hour. They'll multiply that by the number of hours you work during that pay period, overtime rate of pay, penalty overtime rate of pay, whatever that is. That amount will then be taxed at the rate of your taxation for that pay period, not when the back pay comes, but whatever was in place back then. And then that would be the dollar amount that you would get for that pay period. Then it'll go to the next pay period, then it'll go to the next pay period, and they add up all those numbers. It might be like $40 a pay period, times 40 pay periods. That don't sound high enough. It's probably closer to $100. No, it's not 100. But anyway, somewhere in there. How many pay periods is it? It's probably about 40 pay periods. 26 in a year. August 24. Yeah. Yeah, so I say about 40 pay periods. Yeah. It depends on how much overtime you guys worked and stuff like that. Now, what problems do you guys see with the back pay? We're not getting no interest on our money, so forget about that. But what other problems do you guys see? You guys remember the back pay from last time at all? Anyone remember? It got taxed a lot. It will count as 2025 income. It gets taxed a lot. So it pretty much, you're probably not going to owe any more taxes next year than it'll probably work out as far as the tax rate, because they're taxing the money in real time. But your 2025 income is going to go up. Like, they're not going to go back and recalculate your 2023 and 2024 income. It's all going to be 2025 income. It'll go up, so that will affect the tax rate. What else you guys see as a problem here? Yeah.
200,000 over the course of 20 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So last time, and I'm sure we'll do it again, we came up with a calculator where you can put in the hours that you worked, and it'll calculate it. And when we did it last time, we checked a bunch of people's pay. The post office got it right. Shockingly enough, I was shocked. they did calculate the back pay correctly. So that ended up not being a problem last time. Could be a problem this time. Somebody could misprogram it, or there's any number of things that could happen. But yeah. Last time that was not a problem, but that is a potential problem this time. What else could be a problem? There's no deadline, which is a serious problem. At one point, the APWU had a similar situation. The post office was dragging their feet. I think we had one of those situations too, where there was a post office missed. I don't know. We had a situation where they had to pay a little bit extra because of the delay. I can't remember the details, but that's a possibility that if it drags on, I don't think we can file a grievance, but maybe we can go to federal court and say they owe us our money, or something. And maybe they'll give us a little bit more as a result of that, or whatever. So yeah, that's a possibility. Anybody quit the job during that time? August of 2023 up until April 18th of 2025. You think they want their money? You think they're going to get it? I don't think they're going to get it. The reason why is because I don't think the post office, they don't have a way to give them the money. They're no longer an employee, and the person can't file a grievance because they're no longer an employee. You only have a contract when you're an employee. Once you don't have a contract, you're not. Once you're not an employee, you don't have a contract. Now, could someone maybe go to the Department of Labor or sue the post office and say, I'm owed this back pay? Possible, but that's going to be a tough nut to crack.
What about retired carriers?
What about retired carriers? So last time, they told us they were going to recalculate everyone's annuity. So if you retired during the back pay period, or you retired during the back pay period, your retirement calculations were based on the salary that you were making at that time, but your salary has now been updated. And so you already are locked in to the salary that you retired under, and the post office has to send the new salary information to the Office of Personnel Management, and they have to recalculate what your annuity should be, and then they have to also give you back pay on the difference in the amounts that you should have gotten, and then going forward, you'll have the recalculated amount. What about somebody that's going to retire this year? Same problem, particularly if they retire prior to receiving the back pay. So once we receive the back pay, they're going to go in there and recalculate your 2023 salary, your 2024 salary, your 2025 salary, your salary, your retirement is based on your high 3 years of working, which your high 3 years are going to go up based on these new calculations. But when you retire, if you retire, say in June, July, whatever, OPM is not going to have those calculations. Post office doesn't even have those calculations. So they're going to have to calculate your annuity based on the current numbers that they have, which are not correct. And then they'll have to come back later and fix them. But the problem is that when you retire, most people want to know exactly how much that annuity is going to be. And you're not going to know because they haven't done it. You can be able to estimate it, I guess, if you're good with math and trying to figure it out, but it would just be an estimate. They'll have to recalculate all of that. So the back page is a little precarious and it gets everyone nervous. And, it's really not the way to handle business. The law gives you a 90-day period to negotiate a new contract. And we've gotten just way far away from 90 days and what the law requires. And we're not doing it right. There's a lot of things wrong with the process, but that's one of them. And as you go on, you just can't put the pieces back together when you try to do it, after the fact and all of that.
I have my about TSP. If I'm contributing my
Great point.
5%
Yes.
TSP, post office matching that, my back pay will my TSP be taken out that, but I can help post office match that. But
No. It won't mess with the TFP, which is, most of that time, the stock market was doing good. So most of that time, we would have rather have been able to put more money into the TSP. Of course, now we don't want to put it in. But had we had that extra money at that time, we would have put it in. And then, we would have made more money off of our money based on, how those different funds were doing at that time. But that's just another drawback to the back pay. They're not going to go back and recalculate they're not going to calculate the TSP. OWCP is another issue. If you're injured, whatever your rate of pay is at the time of the injury is how they calculate your wage loss compensation if you miss work. So whatever that rate of pay was is now not accurate. I don't know the answer to the question, is OWCP going to go back and recalculate? Because they didn't last time. I don't think they did last time either. So yeah, okay.
But what I want to know is if carriers are out when they receive their back pay, what happens? Because you're initially receiving a check from the post office if they're receiving comp payments.
I would assume
That's
that
the only thing.
I would assume that OWCP would know the difference between wages but that could be a complication. If they count it as wages and you're getting wage loss compensation from OWCP, that's going to mess that whole thing up. But they shouldn't count it as wages. It is wages, but it's wages for a previous time frame. It's not current wages. It should not be counted as current wages.
Yeah.
But really, the Postal Service is required by law to tell OWCP what your rate of pay is. And now that your rate of pay has been updated, I would say they should go back to OWCP and tell them the correct rate of pay now. But I don't know if they're going to do that.
If you're a worker, if you're an injured worker, you have to go back to work for 6 months or more, and then
Before they recalculate.
before they recalculate it. So if you go off for an extended period, you go back to work for over 6 months, and then you go back off, that's when they recalculate your pay. That's the only way to.
But based on this contract,
They won't.
yeah, they won't, but they should.
They should.
They should, Okay. Any other thoughts or questions about any of the pay stuff?
Just one, on the step B, how does that get calculated in, or where is that put in?
So step T, somewhere no later than September 21st of this year, your salary will go up by $1,000. So that check, if you divide 1,000 by 26, that's $40. 1,000 by 25 is $40, right? So your pay will go up by $40 for that pay period. Next pay period, it's built into your salary. So it's $1,000 increase. Correct. It's addition to what you see on that, on that chart. Yep. The three things that are gonna happen within 180 days. Step P, the top step goes up 1,000. Everybody starts at B. If you're below B, go up to B, and CCA will get 50 cents. Those are three things happen within 180 days. Lawrence, you got a question? No. You guys good?
Outside of pay, is there any added benefits that have been made public yet, or anything that's?
Think they're hiding the benefits from us? The rest of the stuff, I'm gonna go over the summary here, or I guess we could go over the PowerPoint. I don't know. I don't have enough copies of the PowerPoint. I'm just gonna go over this thing. The summary of the national agreement. Some of the things in the national agreement are wholly insignificant. So if you have questions on them, let me know, but I'm not gonna go over some of the more insignificant things. Just try to stick to the things that are significant, in there. So the term of the contract we went over, wage increases, I think we went over pretty good. The 180-day things, that's the wage schedule changes, that's what they're talking about. The back pay provisions, we went over, and then you get to uniforms. Oh, they really struck out on the uniforms too, huh? The uniforms, they're gonna give you a 2.5% raise in the uniform allowance, which is the exact same raise that they've given us for the last, I don't know how many contracts. We always get a 2.5% raise in the uniform allowance. And the way it's gonna work is May 21st of this year, you're gonna get that big $37 raise. Right now it's $4.99 annual. It's gonna go up to $5.36. And really the $37 represents 3 years worth of raises, because in 2023, we didn't get a uniform raise. In 2024, we didn't get a uniform raise. We get the raise in 2025. And it's only 7.5% of $4.99, which is how you get that $5.36 number. And then May 21st of next year, it'll go up another $13 to $5.49 per year. Still can't get the rain gear or the snow gear or half the things that you need, really. Especially in the climates where it's a lot of seasons like we deal with. It's just only insufficient. So in addition to that, there's another change in there, which is that you will have an additional year to use. So now you get a debit card, right? They load the money onto the debit card. You have 12 months from your anniversary, from the date they load the money on to use it. Now you'll have 24 months. So if you don't use it in the first year, it'll still be there in the second year, and you'll be able to use it. It's gonna roll over just for 1 year. It'll roll over.
Is that retroactive from like currently if I have?
No, I don't think it's retroactive. What does the language say? Unused portion of an eligible employee's annual allowance for uniform and work clothing will be carried over and available for use beginning 12 months after the end of each anniversary year. And eligible employees' uniform or work clothing allowance balance may not exceed the sum of 2 years of the employee's annual allowance entitlement. This uniform and work clothing program adjustment will be implemented no later than 12 months from the date of the interest arbitration award, so it's not correct.
So the ones that 2 uniform allowances on your card at the time.
Yes,
So then we might actually be able to buy some.
yeah, you might not be able to swing, that Gore-Tex gear. You might be able to get it.
without-
Additionally, that last paragraph there, you got a joint task force that will be established to study the uniform program. Now, what you're looking at is possibly like what they call the quartermaster system, which is basically to give you the uniforms, get them all dirty, get back to them, and get clean ones. It's a beautiful thing. Doubtful that the post office is going to be that advanced. We also have like maybe a central vendor, something like that. Post office could contract with a vendor instead of using these uniform vendors that are gouging us. So those are possibilities in this joint task force. The other side of this joint task force is the exact same language in the joint task force was in the last contract. And then they come up with shit. So I don't know. I mean, it's a short window here between now and, I mean, the last contract started in 2019, and between 2019 and 2025, they didn't come up with nothing. So now we got 25 to 26, and maybe they'll come up with something, maybe they won't. What's really shitty is that the cost of uniform, in the last maybe 6, 7 years, and normally the employer requires you to have a uniform. They would absorb the cost of the higher uniforms, but they didn't do that. And instead, we have to absorb the cost, and we have to, mix and match and figure out how to be in uniform. And then all we have as far as contractual language is this task force, which the post office would have a lot more incentive to do something with the task force if they were paid double the cost through the uniform allowance program. If they had to pay you $1,000, a year, then maybe they would have an incentive to fix the broken uniform system. But if we're going to allow them to give us this 2.5% raise, then they don't have the incentive to fix it, and that's kind of where we're at right now. So, all right, any questions on the uniforms? All right, employee complement is not a significant change. The full-time opportunities memorandum, you have a copy of it if you have one of these packets, and there is a significant change in the no, it's not here, right? It's in the what is it there? Where's the order? Yeah, the order language is in there. Okay. So if you go down about 10 lines there, there's a paragraph that starts with when full-time city letter carriers. Anyone got there yet? Okay. When full-time city letter carriers are on LWOP for 13 consecutive pay periods and on the rolls but not available, which is known as a ORNA, assignment must be created and filled under the MOU. Only one ORNA assignment was created for each city letter carrier on extended LWOP. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that if you have a person that's on a route and they're only on the route in name only, not actually there, the Postal Service will have to create a new ORNA position for that person, and then they'll take the top CCA or PTF in that installation, or they could take a transfer, but let's just say they take the top CCA, PTF in the installation, they will convert that person into the ORNA position. The ORNA position is created as soon as you have 6 months of LWOP. So unfortunately, 204Bs don't count. 204B could be off their assignment, same problem, there's no one to deliver the mail, but they didn't calculate that in here. They have to be off, meaning that you're on LWOP, anything LWOP, union leave, military leave, injured on the job, off on maternity leave, whatever it is. LWOP for 13 consecutive pay periods. I think consecutive have to be off completely for those 13 pay periods. Then you create the order. So let's say this contract, we read that all of the terms are in effect as of March 21st, right? Except as otherwise noted. This is in effect now. It's in effect right now. So if you have someone in your post office that's a full-time regular carrier that's been off work for 6 months, as of today, or as of March 21st, that should create a new order position. So somebody gets converted into the order position, and then that person will be an unassigned regular, and they will bid at some point or get assigned to a route, right? What happens to the order position at that time?
Vacant.
It disappears. What'd you say? Someone else said something else. It goes vacant. Okay, it goes vacant. So it could disappear or it could go vacant. Vacant meaning it's going to get filled again. And it depends on whether or not that person who the order position was created for is still off work or not. If the person is still off work, they're still in order position, they got to fill it. If the person is now back at work, then it disappears. It's not there forever, but it's there as long as the person is off work. That makes sense?
So they come back to their position?
The regular carrier never lost their position. So it doesn't affect that regular carrier. The rules for the regular carrier are still the same. As long as they're not permanently, as long as they're able to perform as long as they're rehabbing and at some point will be able to perform the full duties of their assignment, they keep their assignment. But that's the problem. They keep their assignment in name only. Some of these people ain't been to work in years, so the offices are understaffed, and this is an opportunity for someone to get converted and for the office to get a better staffing ratio with a one extra person on the rolls. Okay, this full-time opportunity memo still has a lot of holes in it. I won't bore you with the details, but one of the problems we have is that the vacancies don't get filled until there's a residual vacancy, meaning that if you have a big churn, and I know in Rockford, you guys will have a big churn, but there's other post offices here, because you guys did everything at the same time. But when there's a bid churn, meaning somebody retires, it goes up for bid, somebody else bids on that, then that person's route goes up for bid, and somebody bids on that person's route. During the big churn, there's not a residual vacancy, but what you have is a one less full-time regular than what you need. The language in 7.3A says that there should be one full-time regular for every full-time assignment that you have in the post office. And in a lot of post offices, you don't, because you're waiting on the big churn. So the full-time opportunities memorandum should say, as soon as you have less full-time regulars than you have full-time assignments, that should trigger the conversion, but it doesn't. The conversion doesn't get triggered until you have a residual vacancy, which is a delay, unnecessary delay, and it creates a staffing issue in that post office. And then there's a lot of problems with how they apply the ratio. You don't know if they're going to take a transfer, if they're not. The transfer rules are from the 1980s or some shit like that. They're very archaic, and it's just a mess. So they didn't fix all the problems in the full-time full-time opportunities memorandum, but they did fix the order thing. So that's good.
Would apply, since our grievance process is so broken, somebody on EP or honor removal would that apply there?
Now they have to be on LY. The language is specific to LY. So if you're on EP or removal, you're not on LY. I think that's a good question. That's a good question. Let's see how that plays out. All right, the next one is already in the contract. Holiday carrier assistance. You guys get a lot of those?
No.
No? Okay. Well, if they come, they're going to get 6 weeks. So to get the last 2 weeks of November and 4 weeks of December, post office can hire them for 6 weeks instead of 4 as a holiday carrier assistant. Multi-installation carrier technician assignments is a test that they're going to perform. We don't know where and how and when they're going to do the test. Once again, we got this short window till the next contract. I'm thinking, like, why didn't you start testing it already? We could have known what's up. But it's going to be complicated because think about, so Holly and Belvedere, you guys have 10 routes? 12 routes, okay. So 2 people do not have a carrier technician. So if you take Belvedere, got 2 people that don't have a carrier technician, you take another post office that might have 1, another post office might have 2, that's 5. They're thinking about, or they're trying to figure out how they can create a full-time assignment that would cross those installations. So it'd be a multi-installation carrier technician position. How that would work as far as a lot of things, because you work in a lot of different installations, they would have to work out those details. So we don't know what that's going to look like. It's a pilot, so we'll see what comes of that. The complement and staffing at the bottom there, it says that the MOU contained in the 2019 National Agreement requires the parties to meet at headquarters to discuss the complement and staffing within the letter carrier craft. This has led to hundreds of installations being added to the all-career model, and this MOU continues these discussions during the life of the 2023 National Agreement. All of that is true, but what you should know is that there's an opt-out clause in the all-career model memorandum. It's a 30-day opt-out clause for either side, and the Postal Service can simply opt out of that thing. And one of the concerns with, the outside entities like DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, or whoever looking at the post office is, and we got a new postmaster general coming in, somebody may look at this and say, why is the post office voluntarily entering into a memorandum for all career offices, which I would say they're paying a lot higher all over the country, when all the contract requires is that they hire CCAs. They could opt out of this memorandum, and then, like, we have 48 offices in Illinois in the all-career model. And if the post office opts out, they'll start hiring CCAs in all of those offices and rewind the clock, 2, 3, 4 years or whatever. So anyway, but it's still in there, and we'll see. Hopefully it'll continue. The other problem with the memorandum is this, if you want to put an office in the all-career model, you got to put it into the post office Ouija board, and like they spit out these numbers, and none of that shit makes any sense. The idea behind it is in places where they can't staff, where they have extension rooms, that they'll put those offices in the all-career model. But we've had offices that look like they meet the criteria, and they won't put them in. Other offices, they put them in like, but hey, we're not going to turn it down, that kind of thing. So we'll see how that plays out. Health insurance, there's no change. Overtime provisions, the Nolan Award says that they're going to implement those changes, and they'll let us know what that looks like. So you can read those things, ask me some questions when we get to the end if you want to, but I'm not going to go over them. We're going to do extensive training on the overtime provisions in June, which should be plenty of time. It will not be implemented before July 1st.
That's like absolute limits, so they in effect right now.
Nothing's in effect right now. There's no change to Article 8 right now. All your Article 8 rules that have been in effect from the last contract are still in effect. Okay. Layout protection is the same. Subcontract is the same. Workforce improvement task force is the same. Not very effective. The new employee experience retention and mentoring program. It says in that first paragraph, see that it says that this program, see where it says this program, like three lines down? This program will be implemented nationally in a manner and time as agreed upon by the national parties. They haven't implemented it. So before we get into all the details of it, one, we don't know the details. It gives you some examples here, so you get an idea what it looks like. But we don't know exactly what it is, and I'd rather not go over everything, but like the overtime stuff, if you have questions, let me know. The joint workplace process, it has been improved. Memorandum it rolls over, but it's better. And if you look at the second column there at the top, the new JWIP are identifying potential locations for area regional needs to oversee the process and implementation, any necessary improvement. Restricts us in any way from pursuing grievances regarding hostile work or don't want to pursue grievances on. It's an additional tool. We don't know what type of effort the post office is going to put in, but I'll be able to name teams from the regional office, regional teams that are going to be able to oversee things. So the way it'll work is you'll have a district team that will make some recommendations, try to figure out ways to improve the workplace improvement, and then the team out of my office will be able to monitor that and enforce, those agreements, whatever was agreed to by those teams. So it has some potential to be, productive. We'll see. We'll see when the rubber meets the road. But either way, it doesn't prevent us from filing grievances and doing that type of thing. So to me, it does. It's a plus. Plus, in this contract, it'll work a little bit. We'll see. Local implementation period 7th to June 20. Lawrence, you got a plan, a strategy for your, well, you're president too. President too, gotta come up with, your whatever, so the period, that's the negotiating period. So every branch has to look at the post offices that memorandum is a contract between your local union and your local post office. And basically, for things like how you're gonna use annual leave, uh, that's the big different rules in there. There's one change in the labor management meeting. Where's the labor management meeting at? Labor management meeting. 70. So if you look at Article 17 on page 4, it says that Article 17.5 is amended to add a requirement for the local parties to meet at least twice per year to discuss labor management issues. Melissa, you got a labor management meeting in LMOU? How often is it? Yeah, okay, so you're better than twice a year. A lot of places are a lot better than twice a year. They already have it in their LMOU, but now the minimum will be twice a year. So some places don't have nothing in their LMOU. Of course, quarterly that would be but there's a lot of provisions in the LMOU. That's the time frame that we'll be looking at the LMOUs in all the different post offices. The route evaluation and adjustment language is only predicated upon if the parties come to an agreement on a joint route process. It seems possible that they will, but we don't know the answer to that. It could be a nothing language, it could be relevant. It just goes into how fixed office time will be calculated if they do come to an agreement on a joint route process. So the route thing, the post office believes very strongly that bail line is down, and that there's too many routes out there around the country. It's not the same everywhere, but that's a general thought process. And they would like nothing more, and they've been doing this in the post offices. They go in there, and like they just went into Springfield, they went into Aurora, and they just like, man, they just running, hitting that shit with a machete, just decimating the routes. And they're fine with that. Their problem is that they don't have enough people. You have to have trained people under the M39 to go in there and do the route adjustment. They're not doing them for the M39, but you at least have to have training just to get your foot in the door. And there's a limited number of people on postal service management that can do this. So they would love to have a joint process where they can go everywhere and do route evaluation. But of course, they're going to want to do it in a way where they're going to eliminate assignments. For our purposes, it's just my opinion. Obviously, I'm not the president of the union. You would have to negotiate any type of agreement, but I would not accept any agreement where we're not taking the carrier's actual street time. All this, where you're trying to figure out what the carrier is doing for these 2 minutes and these 4 minutes. I think that's all bullshit. I think that's between the carrier and their supervisor. If it took me 6.5 hours, then put it down to 6.5 and let's move on. All that nitpicking about the time. I think we don't have evaluated routes like rural carriers. We have what time did it take. That would be one. And the second thing is, for any of you that have seen these route adjustments recently, when they use that carrier optimal routing program, that core program, it's horrible. The program, it doesn't take into consideration, people bid on routes based on their seniority. You might have like a mounted route or, whatever, like customers. There's a guy, former president in Arlington Heights, France 2810, Chris Malinowski. He's going to retire this year. Got 53 years on the same route. 53 years. And you just don't see that anymore because there's so many changes to the route. Like more than half of your route can just go hell, 90% of your route can go away. And they're like, oh, you got the same route you had. Like, no, I don't. So Ford makes too many changes to especially the people's senior routes, but really too many changes in all. And they always eliminate so much what they call allied time, travel in between, relay time, travel to and from the route. Constantly, you'll start off with an evaluation. You evaluate each route. Let's say you have 10 routes, and the evaluation comes out at about 80 hours. And you're like, okay, 80 hours, divide that by 8, I'm gonna end up with 10 routes. I've already evaluated routes, right? All I'm doing now is around territory, so with 10 routes. And invariably, you put it in 4, you end up with 9 routes or 8 routes. Like, how did that happen? It's the same evaluation, the same territory, the same deliveries, but you put it into that program. So I wouldn't accept that program, and I wouldn't accept any agreement where we don't take the regular carrier's actual time. But other than that, I think that if we could come to an agreement on a joint route process, I think most people would like it, because we have another problem. Post office going in there and decimating these zones, and we're filing grievances, and our grievance process is completely broken, and nothing in this contract fixed the grievance process. And so file a grievance, they take away these routes, file a grievance, you wait, finally get it resolved a year or 2 later, and it's like, they got to do it again or whatever. It's like, it doesn't solve the problem of what happened in the interim, when the post office went in. So there's an interest on our side to a joint route process. There's an interest on the other side to a joint route process, but do we come to terms or not? I don't know. So we'll see. I guess I talked too much about that one, but it's a pet peeve of mine. I hate that shit. All right, so now it's going to get into some other provisions. Article 2 changes de minimis. The Article 8 change is significant. And what it says in Article 8.3 is all PTFs and CCA employees are guaranteed a minimum of 1 non-service week, except during the penalty exclusionary period, which is the 4 weeks. Management will notify PTFs and CCA employees of their assigned non-scheduled day by the Wednesday preceding the service week. So, guaranteed 1 day off, notification by the Wednesday of the week prior. We've already been told that notification can change. But it has to be posted by Wednesday, but it doesn't mean they can't change it. So that really undermines the value of this provision. But in theory, you still have at least a day off, but let's say they schedule you to be off on Tuesday. So on the Wednesday the week prior, I'm looking at being off next Tuesday. Next Monday comes and they say, we changed our mind. We're gonna have you off on Thursday instead of Tuesday. It's kind of shitty because, you can't really make plans that way, but that's what they negotiated. This language is straight out of the APW contract. We just took the same language, so. It's in effect now. It's in effect now. They should be having a schedule in every post office.
Yeah.
They should, file a grievance. I mean, that should be posted in that schedule, at least 1 day off, and they should know by the Wednesday prior, or the schedule should be posted by the Wednesday prior. All of this stuff is in effect as of March 21st. Well, that's okay. Monetization of annual leave. This is a provision, I think it comes from APW as well, but if you have the maximum number of hours at the end of this year, what's the maximum number of hours you can carry over annually? 520. If you have 520 on the books and you have used less than 75 hours of sick leave in 2025 calendar year, at the start of 2026, if both of those two things are true, you can sell back to the post office 40 hours of your annual leave. So you would go from 520 down to 480, and the post office would give you a check for 40 hours of pay. If you make $30 an hour, they give you $1,200. So you can make that deal if those two things are true. Any questions on that? Okay. Advanced leave. CCAs and PTFs will now be advanced leave. The first year that you're a CCA, you don't get advanced leave. When you come back after your break in service, you will get advanced a prorated, 40 hours or a prorated amount of leave for the rest of that calendar year. And, it could be like September or something, you're not going to get 40 hours. But normally, you'll get to 40 hours. PTFs, when they're hired, they start, or whenever they convert to PTF, they're gonna get 40 hours advanced to them, annually. You got, I mean, it's the same concept for full-time regulars. Get your leave advanced, but you still have to earn it. You can use it earlier in the calendar year, you can vacation scheduling, so it's kind of a nod toward that, but it's capped at 40 hours of what they're gonna be advanced. You could earn like 104 hours, but only gonna advance for 40 hours. Okay? Bereavement leave, they added grandkids. I mean, if your boss is giving you shit about going to your grandkid's funeral, we got bigger problems here. Time limitations, I don't know what those time limitations are, for the admin leave regarding, stem cells and blood platelets, but they will be updated. I don't know what those times are. I don't know what they are now, with you guys, so that's something that'll come up under, I think, 519 of the helm. So we had to look at those provisions and see if you're gonna be like an organ donor or, donate, platelets or something. We'll have to look that up.
It was like 4 hours. I saw some post.
4?
Some branch with.
What was it before? Well, this doesn't say a blood drive. This doesn't, it's like, I think it's up to 4 hours if you want to donate blood on the clock, but this is not donating blood. This is, bone marrow, stem cell, blood platelet, organ donations. I don't know what that is. I'm sorry. We're going on Article 11 here. No significant change. They added in Juneteenth, but we had it already. Part-time, holiday part-time employee, we don't have any of those. Anyway, no, that's the PTF calculation that we were talking about. The part-time employees, they were dividing it by 10 holidays. Now they're dividing it by 11 holidays. So the pay goes up a little bit for the PTFs. Article 12 language is, not significant. Article 14 language, the new section establishes joint labor management safety committees at the district level for all 50 USPS districts. I don't know if they're gonna come out with some type of guidelines for these district safety teams. We have those teams now. We have Illinois 1, Illinois 2. Actually, the co-chair of Illinois 1 is sitting back in the back of the room. But their teams have been kind of highly ineffective and don't, management doesn't put a whole lot into them. So I'm looking to see if there's going to be some guidelines put out by the national parties. How often do they have to meet? Have some type of, commitment from the Postal Service on these district safety teams. But at least we have it in the contract now that they have to have them. They already have language about local safety teams, and that language I think is going to be the same. It says that the establishment of the district teams follows the long-standing pilot test under a particular MOU. So maybe that would give us more guidelines. I don't remember that pilot program having strict guidelines for the Postal Service, but we can look up that memorandum and see what it says. Air-conditioned vehicles, the new vehicles will have air conditioning, the LLVs will not. There's nothing really in there. Everything under Article 15, there's really no change other than they have a task force and they have a requirement now. They had a task force before, by the way, but the task force is going to be required to begin meeting no later than 90 days after March 21st. So good for them. They can meet and hopefully come up with something, but there's no significant changes in the dispute resolution process that we have in place. There's no significant changes to the language in Article 15 regarding contract compliance or how they meet on grievances or how grievances get resolved or the timeframes or anything. There's no real significant change there. 7 modified to allow you to your annual leave to replace if you're in off-duty status under 16.7. So normally you're in a non-pay, non-work status. That's what 16.7 means, emergency placement. they will allow you to substitute your annual leave so that you'll be in a no work but still pay status. And then we're gonna file a grievance on the action that the Postal Service took. If we're successful, we're gonna ask them to restore your annual leave and pay you any monies you lost out on as a result of the improper emergency placement. So anyway, it shouldn't hurt us any. It should, it should be just a way, a stopgap until we can resolve the grievance.
For the 16/7, is it gonna be an option to, say, put, off due status for longer than we anticipated? Did you swap to using it in the middle of it, or do you have to make that determination?
I don't know, but I would assume the way it's written, is that you'll be able to swap annual leave for any period of LWOP up to the amount of annual leave that you have.
Okay.
I think that would be the case. But could be more to come on that. They anticipate a new contract, soon. I'm trying to be funny, but should be soon. And, then a joint contract administration manual update, JCAM update very soon thereafter. I mean, they've been negotiating for like 2 years now, so, they should have this stuff pretty much, down pat by now. So we'll see, but it's anticipated to come maybe in, June or maybe July at the latest. We went over that 17.5. 17.7 is an interesting change, so it hasn't been implemented yet, although the contract language is in effect. But what it is that the NELC is gonna hire a staff to process dues. The way it goes right now is Caref fills out here Form 1187, goes to the Postal Service. The Postal Service deducts the money, and then it's usually a delay there, pay periods. They give the money to the NELC, then the NELC sends branches back their portion of the money. Well, now, with the checkoff program, the NELC will be able to collect all of the data on membership, and then they'll just tell the Postal Service, here's who our members are, and here's how much we want you to deduct from their check. And the Postal Service will deduct that amount, give it directly to the NELC. So it should work better for dues deduction, but also if you want to donate to the Letter Care Political Fund out of your check, you want to donate to the Disaster Relief Foundation out of your check, you can just add that in. Dues are $30, give it $10 to the Letter Care Political Fund. NELC would just tell the service, take out $40 out of this person's check, and we get the $40 and we'll remit it as it goes. So once that's in effect, it'll be easier to sign people up for the Letter Care Political Fund, for example, because you won't have to put the light blue, you won't have to tie up your allotments or anything like that. It'll just be deducted directly on your check in the same way that dues are deducted now. So see how that works. Article 23 is basically for retired union officers. The change is that they got to let them into the postal facilities. They got to give them a little badge, even though they're not an employee no more. But if they're a union official and they're a retiree, they'll have access to the post offices. Under Article 23, list of memorandums is there. And that's about it. So what questions do you have?
Article 12 about the supervisors going back to Harry. So that it's just, they're changing it from 2 years to 1 as far as them going back with no big penalties.
No, it's no change in seniority. So what it is that if a supervisor comes back into the carrier craft, normally when you come into carrier craft, almost 100% of the time, you have to begin a new period of seniority. Whatever in that craft, in that installation, in a new period of seniority, they had an exception for a supervisor that comes back within 2 years that they could keep their seniority, keep their craft seniority. Now they have to come back within 1 year, so it's just reducing that time. It's just very, very, very rare that you have that circumstance come about. That's why I didn't mention it, but yeah, that was a change from, the provision was already in there. They just changed it.
9 o'clock drawing, Gary, Magnuson, roll over.
Can't be 9 o'clock.
Man, let's go. I mean, you guys got any questions? I didn't know I was talking there, Wes. You guys got any questions? You guys good? Like I said, the main stuff is the main stuff that I want you guys to understand how the make charts work and how the different. That's part of the Article 8 changes, the double time and a half, everything that's an Article 8 change. They're gonna tell us when it's gonna be implemented. The double time and a half, the post office is concerned that it's gonna take them like months to program that in. And they told us that they're gonna be able to implement it manually before they actually change their programs. It sounds like a disaster. I don't know if it's gonna work or not, but they're gonna give us all of that information on any of the Article 8 changes, including that, and we'll put out extensive training in June. So tell them on that. But as of now, everything is the same. So if you go over the work hour limits, you file a grievance, A5F, A5G, 12, whatever that is, everything is the same. The ODLs are the same. You know, everything is the same as it was in the previous contract for as of right.
I just, maybe I need to like through us, this arbitrator, that's the one. Was he the same arbitrator that set up the 2K table?
No, that was Simon Dax.
Would, okay, say you.
They all hang out in the same club though.
If you become the national president, would you go with the same arbitrator?
Definitely. No offense to Mr. Nolan, but they need someone who's willing to think outside of the box. Because this thing is all broken from top to bottom. And I wouldn't go with a arbitrator who is, I wouldn't go with an institutional arbitrator. Thank you. That's my opinion.
I got one. For the, overtime work equalization, grievances. It says in here that like people on the same list have to be equalized, right? But is there any like list, like saying like someone who like who wants those people, their average should always be lower or higher than people who sign up to 12 hours per day, and then
No, it's, so there's gonna be two separate overtime lists. Once again, not in effect yet, but once it goes into effect, there'll be two separate overtime desired lists. You can be on both of them, but the equitability is determined within this list and within this list. So there's two calculations on equitability. So if you sign up for an NSA ability, for example, you're gonna compare that with the other people that are, you know, how many people work their NSA during this quarter? That's gonna be your comparison. If you're on the other list, you're gonna compare those hours with the other people on that list for a regular scheduled day up to 12 hours. I think if you volunteer past 12, those hours are not gonna count toward equitability. But like I say, there's a lot of things I wanna see, exact language and interpretations on that. That's
what they said, but
Yeah.
if someone's on both lists, would they kind of like drag up the average of each list for people who are on either one or the other? And I know this is all probably like,
Safe travels. Thanks for coming. We have one closer to you, but we'll get you in June.
It's in June.
Yeah, there's one in LaSalle. I think LaSalle might be the closest one. There's one in Champaign or LaSalle or Galesburg. Yeah, Galesburg is tonight. Yeah, we'll get you the dates though for June.
Hey,
You're welcome. What was the question?
I was wondering, if someone's on both, the overtime, lists, will they like drag up the average for people who are on like either or list?
No, it's, there's no such thing as a person on the combined list.
Okay.
And for calculation purposes, you're only gonna calculate this list, and then separately, you're gonna calculate this list. So there'll be an average for this list and an average for that list, but you will never put them together and say, what's the total number of hours?
Well, I'm saying if the day on list, day off,
Correct.
but if there's someone on both lists, like they're gonna get their, on all their hours calculated for the day on list. All their hours calculated for also the day off list, for those
They have to be equitable in both lists.
Okay,
The determination of equitability is done independent,
okay.
okay? Like I said, we'll have more training on it.
Yeah.
But that's what everyone wants to know, and then, and